Hello and welcome to City Connections. I'm Steve Keim and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Public Relations and Marketing and also the Director of the Enid Television Network. Thank you for joining us. The other day I met with our special guests and we were at a particular restaurant, and this gentleman is well known. Every time we walked to the counter, they said, "Hello, Brent." And then we walked over to a table and they said, "How you doing, Brent?" And I think there were 4 greetings before we even sat down. So I don't feel like I really need to introduce this guy, but it's a real privilege. Brent, thank you for being here today on City Connections, and it's a privilege to get to know you better. I've heard a lot about you through the years, and I remember the days when you played at OU, because I'm an OU grad, but being in Oklahoma most of my life, I remember those days, and those days were some time ago, right?
They're getting farther and farther away all the time.
And the calendar keeps moving. Well, as you can see, we're kind of on the set today. Really, we're at the Enid Television Network, but what an honor that we have the picture of the Brent Price court, if you will, right behind us. So what does that mean to you when you see your dad's name and as the son? What does that mean?
It means a great deal. You know, first of all, it's a great honor. That's the YMCA. It was a place here in Enid where he liked to go and take a steam and work out, and it represented a lot of who he was. You know, he was about family and a faith and sports and relationships, and so it's just a perfect place to remember him. But when I see that court, that's his signature. That's his actual signature. And my dad, for a sports guy, had really good handwriting. I am not like that at all. But
like Arnold Palmer. You can read Arnold Palmer.
I loved it. He had beautiful handwriting, and when I see that signature, that is his signature. So it means a great deal to me every time I go in that place and see his signature there. It reminds me of him. So.
Thank you for joining us on City Connections. It's always my honor and it's always a privilege to get to know different individuals across the state of Oklahoma, but really those that have a special connection right here in Enid, Oklahoma. As you recall, Brent was born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and anytime you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm going to rely on my memory, Brent. He was born in Shawnee, played basketball at Enid High School, went to South Carolina, played basketball, ended up down at OU, and then he was drafted 2nd round, is that right? With the Washington Bullets, played for the Kings, the Grizzlies, the Houston Rockets, and I may have left somebody else out, but we'll talk about the career in a little bit. This is the playoff time of year. I imagine after an 80-game season, you're pretty whooped, you know, as a ball player. But if you're fortunate enough to get in the playoffs, what are these players experiencing?
Well, I was fortunate enough to get in there about half the time in my career. The first few years I didn't get a taste of it, and then when I went to Houston, I was amazed because the season is such a grind, as you mentioned. It's an 82-game season. You got 8 preseason games. And I mean, the toll it takes, the traveling, the physical, the toll it takes on your body, mentally. But when you make the playoffs, it's an amazing thing. It's like you just rejuvenated. It's like a rush. The excitement, it's like a brand new season. And you know, the energy.
Is probably that way too.
The crowd is that way. It's a whole different animal. And I know a couple of guys through their careers that never got to experience that, and I always felt bad for them because it's a great feeling. It's a great thing to get to be a part of. The excitement surrounding it. There's not many things that give you that kind of rush.
Yeah. Well, I can only imagine. Our special guest today, as you know, is Brent Price, and Brent. You played for the Vancouver Grizzlies, Houston Rockets, Washington Bullets at that time, but you decided to make this decision to come back to Enid and raise your family here. Somebody's saying, why did he do that? Can you kind of share with us that process?
Yeah. Well, I had signed at one point a 7-year deal with Houston, and I started having my family there.
Sure.
I ended up having 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. And at one point I thought, you know, I had made a lot of friends there. I thought maybe we'll settle down in Houston. And then I got traded, as you mentioned, to Vancouver, and then eventually to Sacramento the last couple of years of my career. And when it was all said and done, after we had our kids and we began to assess where do we want to live, and we could have chosen anywhere. We had family here. My family was here. My wife's family was here. So that came into play. But ultimately, I didn't want to raise my kids in a big city. I loved my time here in Enid. I really did. I moved here when I was 10 years old. My father took a job here, actually in the oil business. A lot of people don't realize. What brought us to Enid was the oil field. He decided to get out of basketball for a little while, was in the oil business for a while, and then in the 80s when it took the dive, he went out to Phillips University. So a lot of people don't remember that, but I grew up here, and this community was very special to me as a young man. Growing up here, the people, the city, it's a very unique city. There's not many places like Enid, Oklahoma in our country. And the way that people poured into me as a young person through the schools, through the community, when it came down to it, this is where I wanted to raise my kids. And my wife and I talked about it, and we decided to come home. Sure. And we have not second-guessed that decision. Our kids have thrived here, and it gives me an opportunity to give back to the community that gave so much to me growing up.
I certainly can understand that because, you know, I was born and raised in Perry, Oklahoma, and people say, well, Steve, where are you from? I always say Perry. Now, I've been gone from Perry for 40-some years, but still, where are you from? I always say Perry. Right. Special place in my heart, great place to grow up in, close enough to come to Enid, come to Stillwater, whatever. So I certainly understand about these communities that have a special place in our heart. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, Brent, and let's talk a little bit about your NBA career. I know you played with, I think, Charles Barkley, Elijah Wan, and the list goes on of individuals. What was Clyde's nickname?
Clyde the Glide.
There we go, Clyde the Glide, Drexler, I believe. And also you had the opportunity to play against Michael Jordan.
That's correct.
Can you tell us about one of these memorable experiences? And we'll start with Michael Jordan.
Well, it's probably the most memorable experience for me because I got to play against Michael Jordan at the height of his career with arguably the best team that ever played in the NBA, that Chicago Bulls team. They only won 73 out of the 83 games that year. But I got a chance to play against Jordan.
So you caught him on a weak.
I caught him on a weak year. And Michael Jordan, of course, you know, some believe, including myself, that he's still, at this point, the best player to ever play the game. He came into Washington, and I got the assignment of playing point guard, and he was playing at the point guard position that year, 6'6" point guard, and he guarded me that game. And when you're in those situations, you're either going to look like a fool or you're going to rise to the occasion. And fortunately for me, I rose to the occasion and ended up having my career night. I scored 30 points that night. I hit 6 three-pointers, all 6 three-pointers, and had 30 points against Michael Jordan. However, the part the part I usually don't like to share is with my defensive prowess that I had, I was able to hold Michael Jordan that night. Drum roll, please. You know, 46 points. So I held Michael Jordan to 46 points. Wow. But it was a tremendous highlight of my career and life. As you know, growing up as dreaming to play in the NBA against the best players, and actually having that opportunity was quite surreal.
I appreciate you sharing that, and especially the dream part, because it leads in, Brent, to my next question. Recently, there was a University of Oklahoma player who made the decision to stay for his senior year, and he had every opportunity to go on and play in the NBA. But he, I think I saw part of his press conference that he said he wanted to stay, finish his degree, prepare himself for life and also for the NBA. So my question to you, it is a dream for so many individuals playing college ball to go to the NBA. How difficult decision was it for that young man to stay in school versus go to the NBA?
I think at the position he's in, it was a very tough decision because there was a legitimate possibility for him to be drafted and make some good money. And that's ultimately why you try to go to school, so that you can get a job, so that you can support yourself and maybe a family and so on and so forth. However, I think it was an incredible decision, and I love Buddy Hield as a person and a player because that degree, and I remember my dad telling me, even when we were growing up playing, he said, you know, don't let basketball use you, you use basketball. And my brothers and I, we were all able to do that, use basketball to get our college education. But then, you know, 2 of us were able to go on and make a living at it. But the possibility of a kid going on to the NBA is so slim. The percentages are just against you. Sure. There's only 200 and something jobs a year in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And you think about all the college players, forget high school, Think about all the colleges and all the college teams and all the college players, and they all think they're heading to the NBA. It doesn't happen. You know, it's a lottery. It's truly a lottery. So you need to get your education if you can, and take care of your business there, because that's going to be with you for life. You can always fall back on that. So I was proud of Buddy Hield's decision, and I pray that he stays healthy, has a great senior year, and gets to do both. Gets his degree, gets to have that career, which is what I was able to do.
Absolutely. Our special guest on City Connections, Brent Price. A little bit, we've talked a little bit about his NBA career. Now we're going to come back after this break, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what Brent is involved in Enid currently. So we'll see you right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. And our special guest today, as you look, Brent Price. And we've been talking NBA, we've been talking about why coming back to Enid and a variety of topics. And now we want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your role here in the community. As an NBA player, Brent, how did those experiences prepare you for your future life? Here at NBA, what an experience. How did that get you ready for what you're doing now?
I think sports, one of the great things about sports is it's kind of like a microcosm of life. I mean, throughout a season in itself, you have highs and lows, and there's obstacles, and you have to deal with different relationships and different personalities. And I mean, you can imagine the personalities and some of the egos and some of the crazy guys and some of the coaches that I had to deal with throughout my career. And it's about learning to adapt and learning to have a relationship and learning to deal with people and overcome obstacles. And all those things prepare you for the things that you deal with in regular life. So it was a great learning season for me in my life to play sports. I was thrown into a world where at times I didn't have a lot of common with the guys suiting up next to me, yet I had to find that commonality. I had to connect in some way, or a coach that maybe challenged me in ways, or maybe our personalities didn't seem to gel, and I had to find a way to survive and to thrive in those situations. And so that carries over into the business world as you're dealing with relationships, as you're working, as you're selling. I've been a part of Jenkins & Price, a company, a local company here in town, and I've gotten more and more involved on that, and going out and putting out fires and working with people and dealing with situations. All those things, I think the NBA really groomed me well to go out into what I'm doing now, into my community, and to do the things that I'm doing now.
You may not have known it at the time, but 10 years later, he goes, yeah, that prepared me for that situation.
Wasn't a lot of fun sometimes. And I think that's the other thing. People think it's so glamorous, and there are moments of the NBA, but it's work. I mean, it's a grind, and at some point you go, I'm too beat up and tired to do this anymore. But there are some low moments in that, you know, going through injuries, going through tough times, and it's about perseverance. It's about pressing through it, pressing on, and keeping your goals in mind, and moving forward.
I think fans can sometimes lose sight of the fact that you could be a husband. I mean, you could be a dad. I mean, you have life stuff that's going on. It's just not all basketball. Well, I'm sure there's some individuals that are watching Brent, and they want to know, how has the game changed since you played to here in 2015? Is there anything that just really stands out that you'd say, well, the game has changed?
I think there is. I think weight training and those type of things, you can really see the evolution of the players, the strength of the guards. I look at the guards because I played guard, but you got a guy like LeBron James at his height with that kind of muscle mass and the way they're moving, the athleticism. I think it has evolved some. Also the three-point shooting. You know, the three-point line was there when we were there, and we used it. But you might have a team that might shoot 15 three-pointers as a team that night. You got individuals, Stephon Curry, certain guys that are putting up 15 by themselves a night. And so I think that has changed, where there's so many guys now that can set out there and knock down those three-pointers, where you were a specialist in my day when you were one of those guys. So I think the one-on-one it's become more of a one-on-one game. A lot more athleticism.
Sure.
So the game has changed some. I think it has evolved, and it's a very exciting brand of basketball, especially in the West. The West Coast, NBA West Coast is very fun to watch.
I think it is very impressive, the athleticism of these big guys.
Yeah.
Can turn on a dime. Now, off camera, you shared with me, and I don't know if too many folks know this or not, so this is an exclusive, ladies and gentlemen, but you shared with me about the record you had in the NBA of X amount of three-point shots in a row. Can you share us how that took place?
Yeah.
Maybe not too many people know this.
Yeah, we mentioned the Michael Jordan game, and that game was the start of it. I went 6 for 6 from three-point range that night. Then we traveled to Miami. We played in Miami, and I hit 4 for 4 that night. After the game, one of our radio guys told me, "Do you realize you're one three-pointer away from setting a new record?" And that's never good to know going into the next game. You get to think about how, you know. And I remember my coach saying, if I would have known you knew that, I would have never thought you could have done it. But I went into the next game we played, I believe it was New Jersey, at home, and I hit my next three. So I hit 13 three-pointers in a row, set the most consecutive three-pointers made without missing NBA record, and it still holds today, believe it or not.
Wow.
So
That's impressive. And that's
I'm always watching these games, like when Stephon Curry gets hot, to see how many he's hitting before he misses.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because we want to be informative to our audience and really share these little nuggets that people don't know about. I know, Brent, that there was a recent newspaper article, and just from what I know about you, you have a heart for young people. And besides being a dad and a spouse and a community person committed to Enid, you have a heart for young people. Tell us a little bit about your involvement, and especially, I think, 7th graders.
Yeah. Well, my mother she is the administrator over the Parenting Resource Center at Hope Outreach.
Okay.
And about 8 years ago, she met with the Enid Public Schools about trying to be proactive in working with teens and dealing specifically in the area of teen pregnancies. Oklahoma is one of the highest states in teen pregnancies. And her center, what they do at the parenting ministry is they really just teach parents how to parent. And it's for anybody, it can be for any young parent, but they get a lot of kind of surprise pregnancies, you know, unwanted, or and especially teen pregnancies. So they decided they wanted to do something proactive. And the schools, it fulfills a mandate for the schools as well. So about 8 years ago, we started a program, and it's basically they do an abstinence tea for the women, for the girls, 7th grade girls. But for the boys, they do an abstinence tailgate, and we kind of go out there, and the men in town come in, volunteer, and hang out, and we throw the football around, and then we go in and I visit with them about being men of character and making wise decisions in their life, especially in the areas of sexual abstinence. And so, you know, I do care a lot about this community. I care a lot about the young people, and God has placed me in a position with some notoriety, a platform, if you will. And so I've always strived to be sensitive to areas where I can use that platform for positive purpose, especially in our community with our young people.
Well, I certainly appreciate you sharing your passion that you have for the community and also for the young people. As people are watching this interview, Brent, how would they be able to get in touch with you to say, you know, we've got an assembly coming up, or maybe we've got some type of event at our FCA event or whatever, but I know you're available to do so. How would they go about reaching you?
I think the best way would probably just to call my home church office, Emmanuel Baptist Church.
Okay.
The number is 237-0602, and just tell them we're trying to get a hold of Brent Price to come speak at our event, and they will get the message to me. I think that's probably the best way, and I'm always open for those opportunities to go out and share and have an opportunity to reach out to people.
And I know a lot of people across the state and the country will be seeing this interview, so that's area code 580, and the rest of the number?
237-0602.
Okay. Brent, thank you for your time today. It's been good.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Been very informative, and like I said, one of the best roles that I have here at the City of Enid is to get to know individuals better that make Enid a great community to live in. Thank you for sharing these nuggets about the 13 three-pointers.
Yes.
and your defensive stance against Michael Jordan.
That's right.
I'm going to remember that for a long time.
Yeah.
So thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you for being with us today on City Connections. Thank you for taking time to join us. I look forward to seeing you next time on City Connections. Until then, make it a great day.